Around 6:45 in the morning on June 9th, 2026, I'm trackside in Conneaut, Ohio at the Mill Street crossing on the CSX Erie West subdivision at milepost QD 114.5. The weather is fairly warm, hanging in the 60s with a lot of cloud cover. After about 20 minutes of waiting adjacent to the closed Conneaut Historical Railroad Society building and steam locomotive display, a K5 LLA horn sounds at the old Main Street crossing on the Canadian National Bessemer subdivision, being Canadian National U702-61 from Greenville, Pennsylvania, bound for the ore docks in Conneaut. After the sequence finished, a second distant horn could be heard blowing for the Whitney Road crossing on the Erie West, being Amtrak 48, the eastbound Lakeshore Limited. The conductor calls clear at the automatic block signal at milepost QD 114 shortly thereafter. The Lakeshore Limited travels daily from Chicago, Illinois to New York City, with this one having Amtrak 108, a 50th anniversary unit, leading, doing almost 80 miles per hour with an engineer blowing the crossing sequence as quickly as possible. After 48 passed, I drove down to the Woodworth Road crossing on the Norfolk Southern Lake Erie District at milepost B 114.9 to claim my spot for the Union Pacific America 250 Coast to Coast tour. Having arrived almost 2 hours before the America 250 tour was expected to depart Conneaut Yard, I had a bit of waiting to do. Only a few minutes after I arrived, I heard a K5 LA horn blowing at Thompson Road to the east, and scrambled to my position as Norfolk Southern 29P came west on the main track. A pair of AC AC44C6M rebuilds lead the short 29P with a friendly crew in the cab. Not long after 29P passed, an approach aspect popped up on the eastbound signal at controlled point Woodworth. After almost 20 minutes, the lined train came into view across the viaduct, being Norfolk Southern C62 with a friendly engineer, blowing the horn various times for the groups of spectators that were waiting for Union Pacific 4014 as the train proceeded slowly out of Conneaut Yard. The low ditch lights on the SD40E rebuild leading C62 are the reminder of its former service life as a horseshoe curb helper. Equipped with helper link boxes for uncoupling while in motion, the SD40Es served the Norfolk Southern Pittsburgh line up until 2020 when displacement by SD70 ACU locomotives rebuilt from Union Pacific SD90-43 MACs began. All units were phased out of helper service by 2022. And the SD40Es, like 6327, spread throughout the Norfolk Southern system as local power and had helper link removed. Around 8:20, a Norfolk Southern high-rail pickup truck followed behind C62 on the main track, with the driver giving a few blows of the horn. Over an hour after the high rail truck passed by, the America 250 Tour, running as Norfolk Southern 061, departed Conneaut Yard. A clear aspect was displayed at Woodworth. However, the train was going nowhere near track speed.
This one's 1827. Yeah. I'm gonna get a shade for this bed. I got all my faraway shots yesterday, so I'm gonna try and get some a little bit closer today. This is like the clearest lens I have, so. This is a little outdated. The only thing saving it is the lens. The shutter speed and the memory card don't really go together, so like I can't do the constant shooting. There's a so. Yeah, I could do a higher memory card. I just cleared everything off my laptop and I just put a new one in because I didn't have time to grab it.
I realized I was looking at memory cards on my memory card reader, but it actually keeps the hidden files.
Oh, okay.
And they actually delete it. It showed that no cameras, but I took 10 pictures and said,
Really? Okay. So you had to like delete it with the camera.
and I did research, and it said that if your camera gets rid of all the hidden files,
Yeah.
it may show you have all that space on what you read. That explains it so many times.
Right between here. One of these guys is on my shot.
We were told we can't be there, but they can be there.
Yeah, absolutely. Authority.
It's a big shot.
After crossing the viaduct, 061 comes to a stop just before the signal at Woodworth, giving me a great sight of Union Pacific Big Boy 4014 in perfect frame of my camera for a good 3 minutes as the crew fiddled around with a switch just past the crossing. "4014 was built in November 1941 at the American Locomotive Company shops in Schenectady, New York, before being shipped west for heavy freight service on Union Pacific. The locomotive is enormous, one of the largest steam locomotives ever constructed, weighing in at roughly 1.2 million pounds, stretching 132 feet in length, and riding on a 4884 wheel arrangement with 16 power drivers. Restored to operation by Union Pacific in 2019, 4014 is the only big boy still running today. Since its return, it has led annual excursion trips across the system and now takes on the honor of leading the America 250 Tour, returning to New York after almost 80 years. 2 Electromotive Division locomotives assist 4014, being Norfolk Southern 1776, an SD70 ACE painted in a special Liberty Bell scheme and renumbered from Norfolk Southern 1192, and Union Pacific 1776, an SD70M with a few America 250 stickers and being renumbered from Union Pacific 4164. Together, all 3 locomotives pull a total of 16 coaches, 12 from Union Pacific and 4 from Norfolk Southern. After 061 passed, it took a few minutes to get onto the road to begin chasing, but I was not held up for long and managed to get ahead. There was surprisingly little traffic crossing the Ohio and Pennsylvania border, and I successfully got to my second chase location in East Springfield, Pennsylvania, at Scott Road along the Lake Erie District at milepost B108.9. I set up in part of a field with a decent view of 061 as it passed by going around track speed. On the way to milepost B96.2 on the Lake Erie District, I got held up by CSX I-104 at the Manchester Road crossing near the automatic block signal at milepost QD94 on the Erie West subdivision in the town of Swanville, Pennsylvania. Unfortunately, not having enough time to set up for 061 once past the CSX side. I moved about a mile down the line to the Millfair Road Bridge at milepost B95.2 on the end of a photo line instead. 061 charges underneath the bridge on the main, with engineer Ed Dickens blowing steam from the lower valve on the 4014 to get people standing too close away from the tracks. After driving through the chaotic traffic in Erie, Pennsylvania, I hopped out of the truck and sprinted over to a spot next to a grape field away from the crowd of people at the Williams Road crossing in northeast Pennsylvania at milepost B75.9, getting set up with around 10 minutes to spare. The bell on 4014 was left on as the train prepares to stop for its 10-minute whistle stop at the Northeast Railway Museum in town. After getting ahead of the train while it was stopped in Northeast, I set up in Ripley, New York at milepost B68.1 next to a grape field not too far from the Phillips Road crossing. A few minutes after I arrived, 061 called clear at the automatic block signal at milepost B69, arriving a few minutes later, going slower to prepare to stop in Ripley for a half-hour whistle stop. I had never been to New York State prior to this moment, and for my very first time there, I have to say it was a pretty great experience. After the last coach passed it, the defect detector at milepost B68.11 gives a hotbox report to the crew of 061.
Norfolk Southern milepost 68.11. Critical alarm. First hotbox axle to north rail. Critical alarm. Second hotbox axle to south rail.
After stopping for lunch at Love's in Ripley, I made it to the next chase location in Westfield, New York at the Walker Road crossing at milepost B60.2 around 12:30. The automatic block signal at this location changed to a clear aspect not long after I arrived, with 061 showing up just after 12:50, now back around track speed. My final chase location was in Irving, New York, at the end of Mile Strip Extension at milepost B28.4 at a bridge crossing over the Cattaraugus Creek. After trekking through fresh mud from a thunderstorm that had passed through minutes earlier, I found a little patch of sand further from the creek shore that gave a great vantage of the bridge with barely anyone else around. I sat in wait for about 10 minutes until the 4014 could be heard chugging in the distance. After the train passed over the bridge, I packed up and began my walk back to the truck to begin the 2-hour journey back to my grandparents' house, happy at having a successful tri-state chase of the America 250 tour.